We're back again, guys. Mitchell Report Unleashed podcast. Today, we got one of those conversations that's happening. You already know it's going to be on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, wherever you're listening to your podcast and all that good stuff. But let's get into it. Best-selling author, international speaker, and the founder of the Cody Byrns Foundations for Burn Survivors, my friend, Cody Byrns. What's going on, my man?
Man, you are. I am so excited to be part of your show. Thank you again for having me. This is a lot of fun.
Great, sir. We were talking a little bit before the record button. You're over there in Tampa, things like that, home of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, all that good stuff. I always love to go into conversations right away, right? May 2013, your life changed. Talk to the audience about that, my friend.
Yeah, so back at that time period, I was just one of those young guys that was just passionate about helping people and giving hope to folks. And that stemmed from me as a child being involved in church. And at an early age, I felt that I was placed here on this earth to give back and to encourage as many people as I could. And then all through my young years, I pursued that calling, that mission, vision for my life. And I also did that by doing comedy and juggling. And so as a little boy, I went to a kids camp. And at this kids camp, I saw another speaker on the stage. And this is really where I got called, I believe. This speaker was on the platform giving a message of hope to me and all my friends. And I seen how he was using juggling and comedy. But he wasn't up on the stage for self-glorification. He was truly up there to give us kids a message of hope. And that's when it really hit home with me. I'm like, this is what I'm called to do. This is what I'm going to do with my life. And so I pursued that. Then in May of 2013, at this time, I was 23 years old. I was traveling the country and just excited. I mean, at a young age, I was able to do a lot. And after high school, I went to a ministry program in Rockford, Illinois. I got my pastoral credentials, and I did more schooling out of Indianapolis, Indiana. And so I was working with children on a weekly basis at the same time, doing kids camps, conferences, all kinds of stuff. I mean, all over the place. And it was really starting to take off to do international work. And I was in Cuba in April of 2013. I was there for a couple of weeks working with a lot of kids and leaders. And then in May, my life took a sudden shift. And I could pause there before I go down that avenue, but I just want to kind of set the tone for people to kind of know my background.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it was May 31st, 2013. I was driving back to my church office. I was stopped at a red light on the highway, and this was in southern Indiana, here in the U.S. And I was just completely knocked out of it, to my knowledge, because the last thing I remember, I was driving and then everything goes black, almost as if I didn't exist. It's the most weirdest feeling ever. And everything that I share on podcasts, TV, radio shows, everything that I give, it's strictly from police reports, first responders, and the witnesses that were there that day. And what I am told is that when I was stopped at this red light, I was rear-ended by a refrigerator box truck that was going full highway speed, showed no signs of stopping. On impact of this box truck hitting my Dodge Durango, my vehicle blows up into flames. And it was crazy. And the sheriff's department took hundreds of photos, and I'm very glad that they did, because if I were to be told that this all happened, I truly couldn't grasp the reality of it until I seen those photos. So there was actually a van in front of my Dodge, and the van went to one side of the intersection. My Dodge was pushed through into an embankment. And it would be there that the first responders, the fire department, and all the life flight team, they came. And, well, before the life flight team came, actually, the ambulance and so forth, they just, by the looks of my car, they said it's a fatality. They had already called the coroner, and they was helping the individual in the van that went to the other side of the intersection. Fortunately, it was a lady. She was okay. Very grateful for that. But I, on the other hand, was considered dead until
Mm.
until one of the first responders saw my hand move. And that little bit of movement changed everything for me. And as I share my story, there's so many powerful analogies and metaphors, if you will, that I like to share with people, because I think a lot of people in today's world have found themselves at stoplights. Those moments where everything in their life suddenly takes a sudden shift, and they are trapped in extremely difficult situations, extremely difficult, and they find themselves lifeless, so to speak. And sometimes it's very challenging to get back up after those moments, but a little bit of movement goes a long way. And for me, it certainly did, even though I don't
Mhm.
remember this in this story.
Yeah.
But I think the message in that is that, what can a little bit of movement do for you in your life? And so when they saw my hand move, they changed their plans. They then called in the life flight team. They come to the scene. It took them a good hour to get me out of this thing. They put me on a stretcher. And to their amazement, they said I was talking to them. I told them who I was, where I worked. They was able to contact my family because of that. I don't remember none of it. And so they put me out, life flight me to Indianapolis, Indiana, to the burn unit. And it would be there I'd be put into a coma on full life support. I had crazy injuries, but I'm going to pause there and let you say anything.
No, 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 man. It's such a surreal moment right now. And prior to this recording, and we were talking in the back channel, and I was like, last night, I start reading your story, and I stopped and I said, I don't want to read anymore because I want this story to come to life. I want overcoming adversity, becoming resilient to be something that we can really pour into on this show. And just me listening to you as a podcast host and hearing this story, it brings me into this, how do I say it? It brings me into this world to understand what it is you've been through, because we've all been at a stoplight, or we've all crossed the street. We all see these reckless drivers that don't have, I don't know, they just don't have their 4 point awareness system, right? They don't even know if that's even a word, but it's like, I say, I see some shit, people getting smoked on bikes. You know what I mean? It brings me back to a moment for me that when I was riding my bike when I was a young kid, back in the, what was it, mid 90s, I came down a hill, it's raining, I go to stop, I put my foot down, I throw myself over the handlebars, right? My bike's in the middle of the street. Cody, I felt like I was in the middle of the street because when I got hit, then the surreal moment. So I know what that feels like to a degree. So when I hear this story, the first thing that goes to my mind is, holy shit, it's horrific. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you're here to tell your story today. And that is what I feel so empowering.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I know there's a slew of people that have been in some sort of accidents. They get rear-ended, they get T-boned. They're not here to tell that story. Family, friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Going
Yeah.
even in more in your story, like when you were in that vehicle, right? What was, did you have any thought processes? Was it like, did you like, not to be ignorant to the conversation, but like what was your first thing that you thought about, my man?
Yeah. So I, I truly, and I'm grateful that it's like this for me, because a lot of folks, sadly, they remember the incident fully. I
Mm-hmm.
still, to this day, I don't remember anything that happened after driving. Like, I drive and everything does go black, but my memory picks up whenever I come to out of this coma off of life support in the burn unit. And there it was very traumatizing because I didn't even really understand what had went down. I'm just waking up. I mean, hearing the hospital monitors, and I hear the voices of, nurses, and I hear my family. And I always share with people the story about my mom specifically. She was there, and I'm grateful. My father was too, the rest of the family, but my mom specifically, I remember coming to, I'm all droggy and still I'm kind of comprehending, but I'm not like fully aware of everything just yet. But I remember her telling me, Cody, you're here in the burn unit in Indianapolis. You have severe burn injuries on 40% of your body, and you have broken vertebrae. You almost died. You was hit by this box truck, and when the box truck hit your Dodge, it blew up. It blew up into flames, and your recovery. It's not going to be an easy journey. But no matter what, Cody, don't lose sight of your vision. And those words meant the world to me, and they still do to this day,
Mm-hmm.
because not only did I know, even though I came out of this coma, which that's a good sign, but it was
Mm-hmm.
only the beginning of my recovery, both physically and emotionally. I would say more so emotionally in that moment. Whenever I was out of it, I had like 8 surgeries. I had severe, crazy burn injuries. My face had second-degree burns. I had third-degree and fourth-degree. I never knew there was such a thing as a fourth-degree burn. But
Shit.
what that is it burns through all of your fat cells down to bone and muscle, and in some cases, it requires amputation. They actually wanted
Wow.
to amputate 3 of my fingers. Come to find out, the surgeons at the hospital, they said if this accident would have happened just 2 years before all this, I would have lost my entire left leg, because my left leg is scarred down to the bone. And so it's like my skinny leg. There's no fat cells, so I can't gain weight in my left leg. But it's
Mm-hmm.
all covered in scar. Um, it's just nuts. Some crazy injuries. And so it's like, one minute I'm healthy, I'm traveling the world, doing all these things, passionate about helping people, giving hope to people, and then suddenly, bam, my life is just shattered. I've got these severe injuries. I have a back brace on because I had broken vertebrae. Come to find out, I also had a blood infection whenever I was in the unit. I had pneumonia. All kinds of crap went down, and it was crazy. It was a nightmare. And I'm coming to, and my mom's telling me all these things, but taken back by her words, I'm thinking to myself, well, hold up, this was not part of the plan. I always thought, here I am, I'm trying to do all these good things with my life. I'm not perfect by any means, but I'm trying to give hope to people, encourage more so children at that time period, try to do everything right, and then bam, here I am. I'm now wrapped like a mummy, soaking with blood and fluid, pain that is just almost indescribable, and working with these doctors and nurses to heal my broken body. And it was crazy. And because I was in the unit for a total of 2.5 months, and during that time, your emotions go haywire and you're all over the
Mm-hmm.
place. One minute I'm grateful to be alive, the next minute I'm like, really, this is not what I wanted. And then
Visioned. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, and mind you too, like before all this, I was a children's pastor, and I respect
Mm-hmm.
people of all beliefs and all faiths. I speak to multiple groups of people, but for me, being a Christian, that was one of those things I battled with. I was like, why would God let me be burned and scarred like this? And why would this all loving God let me be hurt in such a way? And I had a lot of mentors, though, that guided me and helped me through this journey. And, to answer that question, one of my mentors, Dave Reaver, he served in Vietnam. He shared with me, Cody, God did not do this to you. God does not do evil, but
Mm-hmm.
he'd allowed it to happen because he could trust you with the scars. And I take that
Wow.
as kind of like a
Yeah.
statement from my life. It's like I've been
Yeah.
entrusted with this story, but it wasn't easy peasy by any means. So burn unit, 2.5 months. Then I had to go to a rehab center for 6 weeks. Had to relearn to walk, use my hands, all the basics. And then I had almost 1 to 2 years of nonstop outpatient physical and occupational therapy. A lot of stuff.
Hmm. For people listening to this story, right, and dealing with physical or any parts of physical trauma, what's one thing you could tell them that you learned about yourself that they can apply to?
Yeah, well, there's so many different things that I'm fortunate to share with many different
Hmm.
types of people, and I will say the audiences that I get to speak to, they vary from faith based, more so nowadays, corporate audiences and colleges,
Hmm.
and I think as I've grown through this, I have seen that my injuries, they kind of filter out, or they kind of connect with everyone, so to speak, because even though I have these severe burn injuries, I have learned that there's many people in today's world that have been burned in some degree. Maybe not physical burns, but from abuse, neglect, loss of a loved one, maybe divorce, bad business deal, who knows what it may be. And these burning moments often leave people scarred. And these scars, they can hold people back. And for me, I think the physical injuries, they were obviously very difficult to overcome, but the most severe was the emotional. And I had to relearn to love myself despite the scars that I carry. And the thing about my scars, a lot of my injuries, they're on my hands, my arms, my legs, my feet, my lower back. My scars can be hidden depending on what clothes that I'm wearing. But I find that there's many people in today's world that have hidden scars, and they become professionals at hiding them. And even whenever it comes to close to loved ones, and I think about, I'll be at the grocery store, walking
Hmm.
around getting things, and people have no idea the scars that I carry. No, people have no idea the story that I have. And there's many people, and there may be people listening to this show right now that maybe they're carrying scars. Maybe they have a story that many people don't realize. And those scars, if they're not careful, if they're not properly dealt with, they can affect them in their everyday
Right.
life. And so there's different things in which I have learned to help break free of that. And the first thing I go back to is that, that story of my mom. She told
Hmm.
me, she said, Cody, don't lose sight of your vision. I think it's extremely important that we all have people in our life to remind us of what is most important. Because at some point in our life, we're all going to get knocked down. It's just bound to happen. It's a part of living. If you're going to live for any amount of time, you're going to find that life isn't easy. You're going to get hurt, and there's different forms of pain that people encounter. But all of these painful moments, they're all not fun. And we find ourselves at stoplights, moments where we're burned, we're scarred. We need people to be there to encourage us to get back up. And that's one of the things I admire about what you're doing, my brother, is that you're providing this platform to encourage people, because I think we live in a world where there's a lot of people that find themselves hurting and they don't know
Yep.
what to do next. And
Yep.
so I think community is vital, and getting back up after life knocks you down. And, a lot of people, they'll tell me, they say, well, Cody, I wasn't blessed to be, with a close family. My mother's not in my life, or my father's not in my life. And, I didn't have that support system. And I always tell people is that the moment you start to gain some control over your life, maybe that is at the age of 18 or whatever it may be, you are in control of putting people in your life that will encourage you and help you get from point A to point B. We are a byproduct of our environment. If you have people in your group that aren't encouraging you, then you need to remove yourself from them, so to speak, and find individuals that will love you, support you, lift you up when life knocks you down. There's people out there. And I think the blessing of having the internet and being able to go on Facebook and these different groups is there's people out there. Just a matter of sending a message. I mean, that's how you and I, we got
Exactly.
connected. Send a
Exactly.
message.
Yep.
So you never
Yep.
know. Somebody will help you.
You know what stands out for me? There's so much to unpack there, and you go into our scars and learning and adapting, and bad relationships, bad business deals. I've been through that the last, few years. Through resiliency, And understanding yourself, you know that you have to sometimes trim the fat, right? You got to trim the fat. You got to realize that there's going to be people that are going to come and there's people going to go, but the real support comes from the right people, the ones that you may not even have ever met, the ones that are like you shot your shot in the DM. You know what I mean? You pulled up like from Steph Curry from 30 feet, and things like that. But one of the things that come up for me is that it's always knowing through process of elimination and not to sit in our mess, not to sit into the things that are going to, hold us back. You know what I mean? Injuries happen. I look at some of the most professional athletes or even ourselves. We may get injured, we roll our ankle. We're older now, so when we roll our ankle, it's like a 3-month layoff. You know what I mean? But in our younger years, it maybe you can bounce back after 2-3 weeks. You know what I mean? But it's
Yeah.
always just saying, go forward, keep going, let the agenda push you. You know what I mean, and things like that. And somebody like you, where I feel like you're a living testimony, is that you kept going, you moved forward through anything in life. Nothing can stop you. You know what I mean? Nothing can stop Cody Byrns. Like, what's gonna stop you? Nothing. You can push past. You know. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you, straight up.
Oh man. Well, I appreciate you as well. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm right there with you 100%. And I think anybody, I'll say this: there's 4 steps that I love giving to every group that
Mm-hmm.
I get to share with, and it's EPIC steps. And EPIC is an acronym. And if people are interested, they can go and they can download these steps at epiclifegameplan.com.
Okay.
But I'm going to explain them. E stands for embrace challenges. Challenges
Mm-hmm.
will always present themselves at one level or another. It's just part of life. Embrace challenges. I had to embrace the fact that I'm now scarred. I can't change the past. The only thing I can change is what I do from this moment forward. And so I had to embrace the challenge. And then I have the P, which is provide perspective. How can I reframe my pain? How can I look at this circumstance differently? What are the lessons I can learn through my pain? And then we have the I, which is implement change, applying those lessons to our lives. And then we have the C, which is my favorite, that is celebrate. Celebrate your story, celebrate the fact that you're here, that you're alive to live another day. And out of that celebration, you serve others. You serve others and you make an impact within your world around you.
Hmm. Well said. So, how would you say, or how do you believe caregivers change our life to give somebody else a better life?
Oh, man. Caregivers I have such high respect for, and you before going through a traumatic thing, I mean, you see it all the time. I mean, obviously we need professionals like that to be
Yeah.
there for us, but when your life is suddenly knocked down and you're totally dependent on these individuals, it puts everything in perspective. Like, holy cow, I am so grateful for these men and women that are serving in such a way. And I get to speak with a lot of these uh, people today in corporate groups, hospitals, organizations, and I just can't stress to them enough. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for what you're doing. And at the same time, I try to encourage them because they are people too. They have their own lives and they have their own families, their own troubles, and yet they take time to be with others and help them. And so I always try to let them know that they're appreciated, because I think sometimes they feel underappreciated. Um, but when they hear my story or they hear other people's stories, because a lot of times they don't get to see the after effect of the people they get to help. And so they always are very encouraged by it. But I just show them love, and I teach them the
Mm-hmm.
exact same steps that I teach to any other group, because everyone in the world could use them. And so I have a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun. High respect.
Yeah. Through your recovery, and I feel like this is a good question to ask. What was that one book, or what was that one thing that really shifted your mind to even tap into, distribute, and disseminate the information that you had to go through and things like that? Was there that one book, or was that one person of influence that really, spark plug that?
Yeah, there's so many different resources, and I have so many mentors, and I can't. It's hard to even think of all the names right now because there's so many
Mm-hmm.
people. There's people I talk to on a weekly basis that encourage me in my personal life and my business, different folks. But going through this, I think I always give credit to Jesus Christ. I believe
Yep.
my the God of all the universe. He helped me get through this. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I would say first and foremost the Bible, but I had to gain a better understanding of the Bible because obviously my faith was tested, and so I had to really gain good insights and really learn why bad things happen to good people and bad things happen in our world. That made a difference. But I tell you, one of the most powerful moments for me was going back to my why. Why am I speaking? Why am I doing the things that I'm doing to begin with? Mind you, I felt called to do the things I was doing, sharing a message of hope at an early age. Up until the point of being 23, I had spoken to thousands. As a young man, I was passionate and I was, booking events and calling event planners nationwide. I was doing these things. But why was I doing it? It wasn't for self glorification. It's truly up there to give a message of hope, to help people. And I had received a garbage bag full of get well cards from hundreds of kids at a kids camp I had spoken to in Oklahoma City. And this was powerful for me because I'm up there, I'm in the rehab, still yet can't walk because I had to relearn to walk using my hands, all the basics. Couldn't do anything on my own, but I'm up there trying to recover. They bring in this garbage bag, all these cards. I open them up and I begin to read them because this story spread like wildfire. News picked it up. My family started up a Facebook page. Thousands of people were following my recovery, my progress. And so the people that hosted this camp informed the news to these children, and they took it upon themselves to write a bunch of get well cards. So I started going through these cards, reading them, get well, we're praying for you, images of me juggling and doing things. All these little eyes were now watching my response to this tragedy. And I think, we can always talk a message. We can always
Mm-hmm.
talk a good talk when life is going great. But then when tragedy strikes and rubber hits the road, our faith, our message, everything that we are about is put to the test. And I realized that I can talk to these kids all day long, but my actions speak much louder. And I had to really get down to it. Why am I here on this earth? Yeah, I'm not here just for myself. I'm not here just to live and die, make some money, be done with it. No, I'm here to leave a legacy, leave an impact, to carry the message of hope forward. And I realized in that moment, it's like, what am I going to teach? What is my life going to teach? I got back to my why. Why am I doing what I'm doing? And that was powerful for me. And that encouraged me all the more to find good books, podcasts, talk to those mentors. I knew that no matter what, even if I can't do everything I used to, I can still talk and I can still make the most of what I can do. And I knew that I'm going to live my life for the better and to encourage others.
Well said. You speak about Jesus Christ. You speak about God. God is good. You know what I mean? And I'll tell people this right now. One of my things ever since 16, 17 is I sleep with the Bible open, right
Mm,
beside my bedside. And I know when I'm not grounded. Like I remember for a work, it was like what was it? It was a 3-day work event, and I had to go out of town, and I was not sleeping right. And somebody told me, they're like, you should have brought it with you because clearly that's your not security blanket, but that's your safe space. You know what I mean? That puts your mind at ease and things like that. Psalms 23 always open at that page. You know what I
mm,
mean? And things like that. And I use that feedback where I'm like, anytime I need to go and I'm, out of town, I need to travel, let me bring that with me. Open that because then I have that sense of clarity. I know my mission statement and things like that. And knowing that when you have the ability to serve, it's one of the most best building blocks because people can then resonate with who it is that you are. and things like that. And, it leads me to you. It comes back to the book, right? What do you feel in your book that you wrote is one of the most important pieces that people should really captivate into? Because we know writing a book is a hard task. The whole book can be important, but what is that one piece in the book that you feel like people can really resonate with, and what do you want them to take away from it?
Oh my goodness. You're talking about this book, right? The book that I wrote, Scar Release.
I'm talking about that book, my man. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. So it's Scar Release, Breaking Free of Yesterday's Troubles. It is online, but this book, it's not a long read. It's an easy read. The first book, everybody always told me, said, Cody, you're going to need to write a book about this incident. And I knew that I wanted to write a book to kind of not only share this story, but more so just help people find themselves in the story and break free of past trauma and hurt. And so the whole title of Scar Release is named after a surgical procedure that they do on burn survivors. And so as a burn survivor, I have contracture scars. When a contracture scar occurs over the top of a joint, it can limit the mobility of that joint. My hands had contracted to the point that I couldn't even hold on to a bottle of water. And so I had to go in and have surgery. And the surgeons, they assess me and they say, we're going to need to do a surgical contracture release, otherwise known as a scar release. And during that procedure, they go in and they cut the scar at its root to allow you to be mobile again. A scar release procedure does not remove the appearance of a scar. It allows the mobility to move with the scar. So I like taking that and connecting it to everyone in life, because there's, once again, many different areas, many different joints, if you will, that scars occur over: childhood, marriage, the list could go on. And if those scars aren't properly dealt with, they can hinder your mobility. So you got to get to the root of it. What is the root cause of my limitation? And for me, I had to practice forgiveness. This was huge. And I think the book targets many different areas of life. But I think one of the things that comes to mind is forgiveness, because my injuries weren't caused because of my own poor choices. They were caused because of somebody else's poor choice. That driver was not paying attention. Therefore, I got hit. And now I have to live with the scars of what this man did. And I think there's many people that find themselves damaged because of what other folks have done to them. And then again, there's also those individuals that have caused their own problems. There's a lot. I spoke at a prison a couple years ago, a bunch of guys up there, and they battle with forgiving themselves. And so they have to practice self-forgiveness. And so, I think it goes both ways, but I think forgiveness is powerful. It's not that we condone the actions of, like, I don't condone this man's actions that hit me, but I knew that in order to move forward, I had to forgive. I had to forgive because I wanted to live my life to the fullest. Despite the scars that I carry, I'm not going to allow this to keep me in that victim mentality. Even though I had every right, there's many people in today's world, they may say, well, Cody, I had every right to give up, to play that victim card. But life is so short and it's so precious. And it's like, what do you want your life to be remembered by? Do you want to be remembered by somebody that was negative, that was bitter, that played the victim card all the time, or somebody that rose above and still lived their very best life? I have high respect for men and women that have been knocked down by difficulties in their life, and they still get up and they make the most of themselves. I've gotten to talk with so many people since all this has happened. People that have been scarred in many different ways. People that are victims of rape. I mean, some horrific stories that you hear. Women that have been scarred in such ways. I mean, stories where people were damaged because of a drunk driver. Stories that, people where they were born with disorders. How do they rise above these things? And when you see men and women that have gone through life's worst and they're still getting back up and they're not playing the victim card, I have high respect. I want to be one of those people. I want to rise above. And so in order to do that, I have to understand that, yes, the scars, they're there, but I'm not allowing those scars to keep me bound in bitterness. So I think the book as a whole, that's one of the things I really want people to grasp, is that no matter what life has brought you in the past. No matter what pain has came forth from yesterday's trauma, understand that there's blessings here in the now. Grab a hold of them. Take the lessons you learned through your pain, grow from them, and share those lessons with others. Live your life to the fullest. And that's what I love sharing. There's one powerful quote I'll share that one of my
No, by all means,
mentors.
go ahead. Go ahead,
Okay,
please.
one
Please, man.
powerful quote because
Please.
I could go on and on with this, but this is I'm gonna leave it with this. I'm gonna shut up. But it's Caitlin Walsh. She wrote this: the key to success is playing the hand you were dealt like it was the hand that you wanted. And I have
Oh my goodness.
seen,
Can you repeat that again, please?
yeah, the key to success is playing the hand you were dealt like it was the hand that you wanted. And I think if I can leave anything else with your listeners, no matter what life has brought you, if you play your cards right, it could turn around and it could work for your good. What has happened to me, people ask me all the time, Cody, would you go back and would you change what happened? And I say, no, I wouldn't. I'm 31 years old now, and I have grown and matured in ways that I wouldn't have if I hadn't gone through this difficult experience. It has allowed me to grow and to take off. I mean, write a book, and I'm speaking all around the world now. My audience is much bigger, and so I'm fulfilling that vision on a greater scale. It's worked out for my good, and so play your cards right, my friends, and you'll do well. You'll do well.
I'm going to let that breathe. I'm just going to let that breathe because I want people to rewind what was said. I have the rewind button feature on here, but I don't want to take away from the actual podcast. But let that just breathe. And when you listen to that, pause and close your eyes and just reflect. It goes with everything that I echo. If you fall on your butt, you fall on your back. You have the ability and the momentum to get back up. You fall on your face, you could stay there. It's going to be hard for you to want to get up because you're going to lay there for a bit, but eventually you're going to get up. So basically, if you fall on your ass, pick yourself back up because somebody can pull you up. Cody,
That's it.
where can everybody check you out, my man? The book, your
Yeah.
social media, and whatever else you got going on for the rest of the year, my man.
Yeah. So the book is available on Amazon, Kindle and paper format. Currently wanting to push forward and try to get the audio version released. I'm also active on social media, more so on Instagram nowadays at the Cody Byrns. My website, CodyByrns.com, CodyByrns.com. They can go on there. If they like, they can send me an email. And if they know of any events in their area that are in need of a good speaker, hey, check me out. My information's on there. Send it to them. Be more than happy to help out.
Talking about the speaking real quick, I really want to touch on that with the current, stuff going on still. How do you feel like 2022 is going to look like for you? Maybe going international, Canada, right, Europe, wherever, as far as like traveling and things like that. Is that something that you're looking at doing, or maybe that's something you're just going to keep more remote, possibly? What are you thinking?
I'm ready to get back out there. That's one of the things I miss doing. I've done everything virtual. I have done some this past year, live events, and so I've been on the airplane a few different times, but it's still nowhere near what I used to do prior to COVID. So, hopefully next year, God willing, doors will start opening for live in-person events. Right now, there's still a lot that is still virtual. I know there are some colleges that are opening their doors, and I'll be speaking live. And international, I've got some dates pending, but it's a lot of it's still kind of up in the air. But man, just whatever way I can do it, whether it be over the computer, live in person. I prefer live in person because I have a lot of fun.
Of course,
that
we
way.
all do.
So, but I make the most of today's situation. And I think a lot of speakers have learned to navigate through that. I think the virtual side is certainly something that's here to stay. It's growing at a rapid rate, and so I've learned to adapt, and I will continue to moving forward. But yeah, I think next year I'll start doing some more more than what I did this year, anyhow. Live events.
Well, definitely. And if there's anything I can do on this end to even get you to come to Canada, Toronto area, you know what I mean? Let me know. I'm a DM away. I'm a jump shot 3-pointer away.
Heck
You know what I
yeah,
mean, my man?
man!
Yes,
I'd
sir.
love that.
Yes, sir. You know, again, like I said, it's been an honor. You know, your story is something that everybody needs to check out. If you've been through any type of trauma, this is the one. This is the one. I feel like I get into a lot of podcast conversations, but there's just some that really stick out. And it makes me, when I go back to it, I want to listen to it. You're always listening into it in the editing aspect. But when you go back and you listen to this one, this is going to be one of those ones that I'm going to be listening to for a while. I appreciate you, man. Hats off to you.
Oh, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for having me. And man, I hope we can meet in person. I hope we can make that work.
We can make that work. You got to come on this side, though. You got to
I
come to
know.
the north side.
Hey, I'm ready. Bring it on. Canada, come on.
Yes, sir. Canada. Let's make it happen.
That'd be fun.